stand and just take a quick stretch because that was some heavy stuff. I don't know about you all, but I was back there. I was Googling and grokking every other word. Shall we stand up, take a stretch for the folks who are virtual, for the folks who are in office? Just stretch. It feels so darn good. Little joke and fun fact, but I'm pushing 50, and I remember in my 30s, I would laugh at people who were hiring stretching coaches. I was like, what a joke. And now I'm like, oh, there's nothing like a good stretch. So I get it now as I'm aging. So the prior conversation had closed off around delivery excellence. I don't have a PhD in mathematics or in artificial intelligence or in quantum computing. But I am legitimately and have legitimately made a career out of delivering and executing on massive data initiatives and artificial intelligence initiatives. I've been in the AI space since 2011. These aren't highlights, it's actually gray hair that you're seeing here. I have explored a lot of the unknowns, and it's kind of interesting to see a lot of the nostalgic patterns repeating now that we're in 2025 compared to my earlier days. So the good news about today is it's not going to be some high-level woo-woo conversation. There's going to be mental models, there's going to be frameworks. It is going to be an aggregation of a lot of mistakes I made that at the time I didn't think were mistakes. But when you do a postmortem, you actually get to realize like, oh, this assumption didn't hold true, or we didn't know what we didn't know, and then we learned it through delivery. But before we get into all that other fun stuff, what I wanted to do is just build some context as to who I am. I have had an opportunity to take a look at profiles, which you do for the cyberspace, and you guys are all successful in your own right. And I'll be honest, this space is such a thankless, it's such a thankless space. It's like no news is good news, but there's always news, which means there's always something wrong. I always like compare it to like being a plumber or an electrician. When's the last time you called your plumber and said, thank you so much, I haven't had an issue in 6 months? Like never. When's the last time you did that with your electrician? Like, hey buddy, I haven't seen you for a year and a half. I'm gonna send you like a holiday gift because you did your job so well a year and a half ago, I haven't had to call you back. We're kind of in similar roles, whether you're in governance or security, cyber, like things are starting to come together. And unfortunately, within our community, we don't always get the pats in the back. We're not necessarily always appreciated for everything we've prevented. So what I want to be able to do is actually celebrate everyone in this room. Now, by way of introduction, this was not a path that I chose growing up. I'm Persian by nationality. Our only options were to be a doctor or a lawyer. So I went completely rogue and chose this path. But accidentally, I actually used to be a professional rugby player. I played on the US women's national team. And what happens when you age? Recovery takes a lot longer. And it was time to hang up my cleats and get a real job. And my first gig was a data engineer. I didn't know how to spell data or engineering, and I swore I was gonna get fired. Luckily, I didn't get fired, but my boss did pull me in 6 months in and said, Sol, we love you, but you are never allowed to touch a lick of production code ever again. And from there, things just kind of happened, and I took a variety of jobs. But there were two pivotal moments. One, when I became an SAP Platinum Master Data Management Consultant. Anyone know what MDM is? Good, don't ever choose it as a career. It's horrible. But there's no better way than to learn data than doing ERP migrations and operating as the MDM lead. And after 8 of those, interestingly enough, the second pivot point was, did anyone get a chance to see Watson and Kenton Jennings in that televised version of Jeopardy? Man against machine, and machine won. Well, I was part of the original leadership team for Watson. So help take it to market, help evolve it, talk about a lot of fun, fast failures. We were a well-funded startup. And that's kind of where I got my sea legs, if you will. And since then, I've had a few different roles. I was the first chief AI officer appointed back in 2016, the first chief data officer. I've served as chief analytics, chief data and analytics officer, regardless of the title. My role has always been data, advanced analytics, robotics, and artificial intelligence. And as of 8 months ago, I left AWS as their head of technology for North America for their startups division. I saw the solution architects and engineers, and I joined Cyera as a chief strategy officer for data and AI. Now, I get the question often of why the switch? Well, I've done over 200 deployments in my lifetime, and of those 200 plus deployments, 58 have made it into production. Not all my kids graduated. I get it. I'm okay with that. And 52 are still in production to this day. And I do fundamentally believe there are two key aspects as we move into this new world of ours that'll allow us to scale in a healthy way. The first is AI and data security. It's a non-negotiable. So do me a favor, look to the person to your left and say congratulations. You are in a very important position, whether you feel it or not. Louder, come on, say congratulations. There we go. Now look to your right and say condolences. Yes, because this is a space that has not been figured out, and you've got millions of individuals who've been tasked for figuring it out. You are the new power grid, whether it feels like it or not. And I know those days are long of like endless to-do lists and no one's listening and you have to have 11 alignment discussions in order to actually make the decision. And by then, heck, the tech stack's already changed. I get it. It's very, very frustrating. But you have to appreciate the position you're in and where we are at. Because this community, this generation, we've seen Y2K, we've seen .com, we've seen mobile apps, we saw big data and Hadoop clusters, Web 3.0, metaverse, blockchain, artificial intelligence. If we don't know how to adapt and be resilient, I don't know which community does. And we have kept these companies afloat our entire career. So be proud of what you do, whether or not you get the credit for it. Now, with that said, how do I put it? My mother said I was born without the gene to filter. And it's true. I'm going to be very real about a lot of things and very transparent. So if you guys have questions or questions come up, if I don't know the answer, I will say I don't know. But if I do apologize. You may need to censor me at times. I will be brutally honest with the response in and of itself. All right. We know AI is here. I get it. I'm in this space and I've hit AI fatigue. You can't even bump into an air molecule without hearing how amazing AI is. But I think what's more amazing is, everyone remember GDPR? I called it gosh darn pain in my rear. I spent 4 years of my life deploying, developing, traceability, auditability. What happened? Because back in the day, you used to have to opt in for companies to use your data. Now what? It's automatic. You have to actually opt out. LinkedIn is a perfect example. I mean, we all know the stories of Siri and Alexa and stuff like that. But even LinkedIn, every like, every post, every comment, every message is actually training their foundational models, and you were opted in without your permission. You have to actively go and opt out. We are just living in a very data surveillance type of world right now. If anyone ever sees it, and I think you guys know this, but that little orange dot on your phone or your Apple Watch, or randomly you get advertised something that you were just talking to your friend about, you didn't even type it or text it, that means you've given one of your apps permission and it's paying attention. It's not by accident. So our jobs have gotten harder because by default, everyone is opted in. The second is our consumption of artificial intelligence. We hear how amazing it is. But just some fun facts. Mobile devices right now, globally, 83%. Computers globally, about 58% of the population. We still have a lot of third world countries. Right now, 27% of Americans are using AI and 2% of the world is using AI. Are they using it correctly? Different story. And we'll get into that a little bit later because my word of caution with artificial intelligence is most of us are 2-3 years into it. I've seen some of the long-term impacts. Outsource tasks. Do not outsource your critical thinking to the darn things. But we'll get into that in a second. But just to give you an indication of its popularity, right, Instagram took 2 years to develop a 100 million user base. It took OpenAI 2 months. And right now there's about 2.2 billion prompts being entered a day. And if that wasn't bad enough, did you know that 57% of the worldwide content is AI generated right now? No wonder prompting is so popular. It short circuits the process of writing, thinking, and in our endless days of to-dos, it's actually an accelerator to a lot of things, to the point where if we are not careful in a few years, we are going to be codependent on artificial intelligence just the way we are with GPS. I mean, show of hands, who doesn't use GPS? We use GPS even when we know where we're going. Darn thing says turn left, we turn left. Darn thing says turn right, we turn right. We don't even question the darn thing. And did anyone see the Office Space where they ended up in the middle of the lake? They're like, I think we're going in the wrong direction. Like, it says to keep going. These are some cautionary tales that, again, we'll get to in a point, and I promise it'll all come back in a full circle. We are going to develop a codependency on it because I've seen what happens 4, 5, 6, 7 years into it. Now, if we talk about global investments, there's about $1.85 trillion of investments going into artificial intelligence. That's a lot of money. Yet, 74 to 88% of all AI projects are stalling, canceling, or failing at the MVP and POC level. Are these the stats that we're hearing? Because this isn't popular. I share this because it doesn't matter where in the spectrum you are, whether you're having discussions with your team, whether you're deploying something in POC, whether you've pushed something into production, but there just isn't adoption. If anything, there's rejection of it. The answers are right because everyone is trying to figure it out right now. It is so easy to do a POC because you've got constraints. You want to scale the darn thing? That's a very different beast. You want to operationalize it? It's a completely different beast because now you're talking about adoption. So in the next few slides, what we're actually going to do is go through the details of why we hear one thing when we're actually living another. All right, this is funny. Come on, guys, let's giggle. There we go. There we go. Giggling brings some energy. Let's do it. So, and I'm not here to make you feel good, to be honest. It's just more of a reality of don't have FOMO. Everyone is still figuring out, especially companies that are not hyperscalers or AI native startups. Because the fact of the matter is most Fortune 500s or Fortune 1000s have built their businesses based off of what? Customer trust, customer transparency, customer experience. And then it became tech-enabled. That's just the history. And you cannot lose that trust or that transparency. Consumers are very fickle. So, why the failure rates? This is where I kind of talk about all my failures and then what I'm seeing in the market, because I happen to be an advisor for Deloitte's AI practice. I happen to be a Harvard Fellow where I'm studying the impacts of artificial intelligence on the workforce. And not from, are we going to get laid off or not, but how do we fundamentally need to upskill, reskill, and amplify our day-to-day so that we become force multipliers? Because my biggest purpose in life is to make sure we are amplified by AI and not replaced by AI. And so I'm trying to solve the problem of what does it mean to actually upskill and what is workforce preparation. So, with that said, part of the challenge we have right now is 100 years ago, content used to replicate every 100 years. It's why we know of scientists, it's why we know of architects, it's why we know of poets. I can memorize entire novels. I can barely memorize my husband's telephone number and my mother's. Or anyone else struggling with the same darn thing? If we lost our phones, pardon me, but we are royally screwed. We just are. We have such a dependency on it. But the reason why that matters is, if you think about the mid-1900s, content was replicating every 25 hours. Right now, from the time you have dinner to your second cup of coffee, the entire World Wide Web has replicated itself. Content is doubling every 12 hours. And 52% of the content that you see is now AI generated. The goal 10 years ago was to keep up. The goal now is not to keep up. So when you guys are going through these initiatives, the biggest thing you'll need to learn, if you will, or develop the muscle is actually to slow down, reflect, study, absorb, so that you can pick up the signal from the noise. More than ever, critical thinking and discernment and tapping into the signal from the noise is going to be our superpower as data becomes democratized. More importantly, if 52% of the content is AI generated and AI is learning from its own thing, it's like kind of like AI cannibalism in and of itself. You actually have to go through the process of verifying and validating and separating fact from fiction. So critical thinking and discernment become really, really important. And one mistake I see is everyone's trying to keep up and they rush into things without understanding the consequences if they do. The second component is history of innovation is getting faster. From the refrigerator, something that we all have, nearly 50 years, to mobile apps, computers, 25 years. AI, we have 4 to 5 years. We're about 2-ish years into it before that just becomes table stakes. We have less time to adapt, also adding to the speed of change. Another aspect, and this one took me, I think, about 17 different deployments. I hate the word artificial. There is nothing artificial in AI. And if you guys know the history of it, the term was coined at a conference in Dartmouth in the 70s with a lot of substances. So you all put your minds together. There is nothing artificial about artificial intelligence. And unfortunately, a lot of our board of directors and executives assume it's a plug and play. Go do AI. What does that mean, go do AI? So I pivoted the term. Instead of artificial, augmented intelligence, anticipatory intelligence, or automated intelligence. It just resets expectations. Because part of it is like, oh, this is going to take 9 months, and it took a lot longer. And then they were like, well, I thought it was going to take us 2-3 months. Isn't it just a tool you put in? I was like, no, that's using AI. What we're trying to do is do AI. There's a very, very different discipline involved. And of course, now we're pivoting into autonomous intelligence, so agents. Another aspect, and this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I can't even count, we are going to do artificial intelligence. And then what do? We find the use cases to match AI, instead of starting with the business problems and assessing if AI is the answer to the business problems. We are not working backwards, the other way around. And sometimes I have to explain to boards and executives, I was like, do you want to spend $4 million in 2 years and then possibly report some mixed results in your ROI? No. If the goal is to cut a piece of paper, why on earth would you introduce a chainsaw into the mix when a scissor does the trick? We've all been in the tech space for quite a bit of time, and there are tried and true technologies that work to solve existing business problems. Don't make lives complicated for yourselves. Explore that first before you step into the ocean of artificial intelligence, which quite frankly is a muscle that needs to be developed. Another gotcha, this took me about 30-ish deployments, but I was like, this makes sense. Just because something can be done by AI, sometimes it shouldn't. You have to take a look at the risk profile, what's at stake. And then you have to take a look at your internal maturity off of data, infrastructure, and talent, and the complexity to be able to deploy this successfully. And then you follow a quadrant. Some things, amazing, AI only. Some things, human only. And the part that I want to share with you guys, it's a distinction that makes a massive difference, is something should be AI-led, human-supported, versus human-led and AI-supported. We call it human in the loop, but that's like a broad brushstroke if there always needs to be a human in the process. The breadth, depth, and span of your involvement matters in the capabilities that you're deploying. So go through the process of risk and complexity and decide, can AI do this alone? Or should we handle it? Or should it be AI-led and human-supported, or the other way around? Can anyone come up with one use case that should be 100% human-led, even though it can be AI-led? Does anything come to mind? Which one? Music. Oh, creativity. Fun debates on that one, especially when the CEO of Suno he has a few critics there. I know his goal is to democratize music and music production. And it's a great concept, but I think approach matters a lot. Investment banking. A lot of data aggregation, a lot of data analysis, a lot of research. Prime for AI. There's too much at risk. 1 0, 1 dot, anything goes wrong, millions, potentially billions. Still AI-led. But you know what is great for AI and humans? Procurement. I mean, if we think about it, probably the most understaffed team function, but the one function that we all have a dependency on. And which one of our teams is like, oh, procurement's on top of it. They're able to turn the MSA and the SOW within 3 weeks and no problem. And I was able to onboard my vendor like that. We're chuckling because the reality is they are overworked and understaffed, and it's a lot of paper documentation. It's a lot of analysis. I remember I was helping a client about 4 months ago. They had 44 contracts with Coca-Cola alone, by region, by country. And they were spending a lot and leaving money on the table. You want real ROI? Chase the unglamorous stuff. That's where you can really make a difference. So another lesson learned is the misconception of doing AI and using AI. Right now, executives are frustrated because they're not able to get the financial ROI. Well, why? There's a few reasons. One, we're not completely being honest about the cost. If they actually knew the cost, I don't think most of us would sign off on it. But there's also a misconception that if you buy a few thousand Copilot licenses or a few thousand Gemini licenses, we are doing AI, we should experience this 26% productivity lift. With all due respect, is summarizing emails going to get you that stuff? It's not. And that's using AI. You're using these tools to facilitate and accelerate. But if we talk about true value add, that's not where it's coming from. Doing AI is taking a function, taking a workflow, taking tasks, taking subtasks, and being able to decompose it and understanding where decision points need to change and by whom. Anyone here Six Sigma certified? It's kind of like going to Six Sigma boot camp. That is doing AI, and it's painful. It requires focus, and it requires funding. That's where you're going to get your lifts from. But sometimes I remember wanting to take shortcuts, or not shortcuts, but the easy path, and I wouldn't get the ROI from it. And I'm like, I couldn't figure out the difference. We were using the tools, but we weren't really operationalizing artificial intelligence. I think we talked about my 2 main areas, right? Data management, data security, AI security, and workforce preparation. Even though they are passion projects of mine, what's happening right now is we are spending more time on the shiny toy. Which model do we choose? What has the greatest validity? What has the greatest accuracy and infrastructure? We are spending very little time on workforce preparation and outside of data access on actually data security and AI governance. And the model needs to be inversed. So in terms of deployment, if you're responsible for building a project plan, I highly encourage you guys to flip the script on this one. Now, AI governance and data security, what on earth does that mean? I know we hear the words, we're in this space, but everyone is trying to figure it out, and it's why I joined my company. I mean, I would have never thought I would have been passionate about figuring this problem, but I respect our community so much, and I'm like, if we don't do it, who else is going to do it for us? So I'm going to share some stuff with you all today. The first is the breadth, depth, and span of your AI and data security measures matches the comfort level of your organization's willingness to adopt AI. Are you going to use artificial intelligence, some level autonomy to write emails for you, write content for you? Okay, that's the easy stuff. Or are you going to go a little further and have it write production code for you? Some teams are actually going there. And some organizations are taking it all the way to the right, and they are deploying agents. Little fun story, and I only share this, and I know I'm going off of a tangent. I was helping a customer, and their workloads had gone up about $3.4 million. We had to troubleshoot, so they pulled me in, and I was taking a look at it. And it turns out 2 agents were arguing with each other for about 2 days. There was no inventory of the agents, there was no orchestration of the agents, and 2 different groups had developed the agents, and they were overriding each other in this circular loop. Running the workload cost up. It's a new space for us. It's greenfield for us. And right now, the stats are you have to develop close to about 1,100 agents to put roughly 99 into production. It's very much trial and error. Do not think it's a light switch that you put on. And as you guys begin to go to scale with it, orchestration is going to be very important, but agent-to-agent authentication is going to be very important. And historically, the role of the CDO and a CISO has always been separate. And sometimes I've had very friction-full experiences with my CISOs, and sometimes it was a beautiful relationship. But as we move into artificial intelligence, we have to come together one way or another and solve this problem, because it's not just endpoint security and tokenization and identity access management. As a matter of fact, the division of labor has now come together, and we have to solve the entire AI governance paradigm together. Are we worried yet? I'm just kidding. Another component to all of this is the way we are operating right now. We are still operating in silos. Maybe in 6 months, my bet is it's going to be in about a year, where we are going to be living in this collected mesh. The practices and protocols that we have applied historically in the past, like with security at rest for structured data, unfortunately are not going to apply in the future. So we have to start expanding our boundaries and getting out of our comfort zones. Data at rest, we've somewhat managed. But now that we've got not just applied AI, but generative AI and agentic AI, what's around the corner for those of us that are in the security and privacy space is protecting data in motion and data in use. And the way to combat something that AI has agitated is AI native capabilities. For example, if you guys are using DLP, you've got to look into Omni DLP, because it's no longer a matter of just having an understanding what's violating your GRC policies, but in real time, getting actual recommendations on what new policies should be. Violations that haven't happened that could happen, because now you've got a toxic combination coming together again. Human oversight and human in the loop actually slows us down. You have to start looking into AI native capabilities to be able to combat this stuff. The other core consideration and components is real-time policy updates will become a non-negotiable. We can't keep up with the pace of change and how much content is being created. You have to start exploring not just data at rest, but data in runtime. And if we're looking a year or two down the line, I hate to break it to you, but agents will break scale. And human in the loop, as a matter of fact, will not be able to keep up, because our oversight does not match the speed of agents. So don't be surprised if a year and a half, you actually start seeing security agents in the loop. An agent validating another agent. It's not sci-fi stuff. I'm not a futurist by any means. I've seen glimpses of it. I've seen a lot of the whoopsies. We're talking about maybe 6 months to a year and a half. And I only share this with you so that when you're on your run, when you're on a walk, when you're getting your Starbucks, do not pull your phone out. Just think. How do we solve this stuff? How should we include it? It's amazing that when you give your brain the space to think, you can actually come up with a lot of the solutions to these things. So allow yourself the time to reflect, because the stuff is not far away. In addition to that, our journey is not clean. God knows we've got a ton of PowerPoints and we're getting information and content from all over the place. But I did want to simplify AI governance and the data security journey for our community. And so there's this slide, if it helps. So when you have to explain where you are on the maturity curve, this is a good framework to use. And then add your own secret sauce to it. Make it your own. And then, of course, my favorite subject, the workforce. This is more from a human perspective, because at the end of the day, we are parents. We work with our peers. And we are individuals that are trying to be successful at work, make sure we stay physically fit, give enough attention to our children, stay cognitively strong while taking care of our parents and having friends. It's a lot. But I'm sharing this stuff because there's one thing you cannot skip in the future, and we'll talk about this in a second. The catalyst for AI, it's easy right here. Massive growth expectations, morale, productivity, talent pool shrinking. We all know that stuff. But the breadth, depth, and span of your security efforts is going to depend on how autonomous you want AI to be, and if you want it to operate as a microtasker or copilot, which is the world we are in right now, versus a pilot or it actually taking space in your org chart. That is deeper in the weeds. Your security processes and protocols will have to evolve to accommodate that. So much so that right now, org charts are being adapted. It hasn't hit all big companies just yet. But if you're in the discussion with your chief people officer, your chief HR officer, even your own team discussion, right now we are living in org charts and PowerPoints, even on the internet. Around the corner, it'll be us and co-pilots. I think within a year, we are probably going to manage not only teammates, but cockpits of agents as well. And it could be an agent, it could be an AI tool or capability, but anything that has the ability to make decisions on its own that you have purposely put into place and into production. And some organizations are actually even experimenting. They have combined the chief information and chief HR officer because they actually think IT is going to be the new HR function of the future. I can't tell you if that's true or if it's not true, but 3 of the Fortune 100 companies have already started combining those roles. They're hedging their bets. So in closing, measure your success outside of just financial ROI, because you're not going to get that right now. For us in this community, it's really important for us to be able to articulate the story of the value we bring. And the way we can do that is explaining, what did we prevent today that we couldn't have prevented last year or did not prevent last year? These things matter. What could we and what did we predict with a higher level of accuracy this year that we could not last year? Let's say we got a ton of false positives with our data classification efforts a year ago. Now we're at a 96% accuracy. And why does that matter? Because I've been able to reallocate my team towards other higher strategic priorities. We are able to do more with exactly the same amount. And then last, performance. How are we doing better today? How are we creating force multipliers within individuals and the teams you all manage that we just couldn't do last year? So open up the kimono a little bit and explaining ways of measuring success that isn't always tied to ROI, because for us, it's really hard. We're a cost center at the end of the day. And quite frankly, if there is a financial ROI, we never get the credit for it. So come up with another way of measuring success. As an individual, I do want to give you a heads up. Thank you. Thank you. You're reading this stuff. This is true. And this is why, as a parent, I'm not teaching my kids algebra or geometry, because I have an 8 and a 10-year-old. Our parents grew analog. We're kind of a hybrid between analog and digital. The millennials, Gen Zers, digitally native. My kids are going to be AI native. I'm not worried about memorization. So what am I doing? I'm teaching them common sense and critical thinking. For every 1 minute of digital time, I make them do 1 minute of piano or 1 minute of chess or 1 minute of reading. Because I don't know which way the world's going to go, but I want to develop both the left side and the right side. We may go to Target and I'm like, find our way back. What do you mean? We've taken this route maybe 100 times. How do we get back home? Pay attention, be aware. We could be in an airport. I'm like, how do we get out? Mom, how do we get out? I don't know, read. Critical thinking is going to be such an important skill as we go into the future, because everyone is going to be a prompt away from data access. But how you stitch that information together is going to be your new currency of the future. Don't dilute it by outsourcing critical thinking. Make sure you and your teams are outsourcing tasks. The largest team I've ever managed was under 2,000. The smallest team I've ever managed was under 300. And I remember I gave a task to my junior data scientist and my senior data scientist. They both produced marvelous deliverables until we got into a meeting and I started asking the questions, because we were doing some work for one of our CMOs. Well, why is the cohort behaving this way? How come we should go down these channels? Wait, the communication and the language and the vernacular is changing between these demographics. Why? My senior data scientists could answer all those questions because they went deep. My junior data analysts, they had clearly used artificial intelligence. The output was amazing. They did not understand a lick of the research. So I made it a policy within my team. Everyone is using AI, but not to do the work for you. You have to do the work. I'm paying for your brain. I'm not paying you to write a prompt. Use it to facilitate, use it to accelerate, but do not use it to do the thinking for you. So, sort of in closing, we're getting there, I promise. I know it's been a long day for you all. when you guys are in your committees and you're making the decisions on what AI capabilities we want to deploy. Yes, it's making our teams faster, but please ask, is it making us stronger? Or is it actually eroding our ability to continued learning in the future? We are becoming more productive, there's no doubt. But are we becoming more capable in exchange? And yes, we are doing more. But is the more translating into more value? I know these things are common sense, but it's amazing when we are in the thick of it, how often we forget about this. So as individuals, as professionals, and quite frankly, as servants to the companies and the organizations that we serve, ask yourselves, what makes you unique? And triple down on it, because that's what's going to be important in the future. It's that human and AI combo that's going to be the force multiplier. But don't lose your edge. All right? We're done. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much.